Greetings everyone and welcome to the BlastCast. I am Jarvis, and with me as always is a man who's stealthier than a fart in a high wind, Lightning Dragon.
So sneaky.
And stinky.
I don't think about that.
Let's get into this week's news. Around the verse this week was the Squadron 42 update. Of all the update news they provided, the most interesting one for me was that the animation team had added different variations to how NPCs on ground combat acted, depending upon if they're trained versus untrained. Basically, your janitor with a gun versus your soldier with a gun. And,
of course, the janitor is going to win, obviously.
Oh, well, yeah, you always root for the janitor. Especially if it's Star Wars Galaxies. Now, as much as I love that game, there was that one bug the one time where they reversed all the states or all the strengths of the NPCs. So, like, the weakest starting mob was the strongest, and you could go up to a crate dragon and punch it in the face, and it would just die. That was a fun week.
Well, I'm also thinking of Star Wars. The new one wasn't I want to call him Poe Dameron, but I don't think it was Poe. It's some other dude. I don't care. Anyway, I could have swore one of them was a janitor. And then, he became a hero of the galaxy.
Oh, you're talking about the Stormtrooper guy, basically.
Yeah. I can't remember his name.
Yeah. Back into the main branch of the game, they decided to talk a little bit about scanning.
Yay!
Now, currently, you can see active targets in your passive radar range. My question on that is that a cone or is that 360? Frankly, I think only ships that have full scanning packages should have 360. Something like the Hornet Tracker or ships similarly fitted with a scanning package proper. A ping sends out a pulse of energy that will bounce off the target, come back to you, and let everyone know where you are when you use it, but you'll also know where they are. One of the questions I have on this as well, a lot of the trends I've seen in Star Citizen is the range of things is often pretty darn close. I hope the range on this isn't just like 50 miles. These kind of scanning mechanics need to go out for hundreds of miles. Having put about 2 weeks into DCS now, yes, I am referring to DCS.
How dare you?
I know. You have planes that can scan well over 100 miles with a passive radar to locate if something is out there. You may not be able to fully identify it, but you'll know it's there. So if we only get like a 50 mile or something like that, that doesn't going to make a lot of sense. We need to have time. We need to be able to scan like, 1,000 miles out, there's something coming this way, or something out there in general, and have time to prepare. As it gets closer, maybe you get more detail, but you at least need to know there's something out there. Now, approaching objects, you basically hover your cursor over them, and it's going to provide additional information, which is kind of a weird mechanic. I think it should just show up on one of your MFDs. You've scanned it, you select it, you get a squeaky chair, and then basically you can find out what kind of squeaky chair it is.
It's a used office chair, that's what it is.
But I want to know the brand. That's important.
Oh, I couldn't tell you the brand. I don't have good enough scanners for that.
Exactly. But apparently Star Citizen does, because further scanning could reveal crew health, number of crew. It's kind of backwards there, but you get the idea. Sub-items, cargo, all that stuff. So apparently we've got Star Trek sensors. Maybe we'll know if two people are making out. We'll find out. But
heat sensors.
Yeah. Sir, the heat is higher back there for those two people. No. But so if you have sensors that powerful, I really, really, really hope that they can reach a good ways. Also, I think it's a bit too detailed. I don't need to know if Bob has a wounded left leg. While we have a mechanic like that, not having beyond visual range combat that you can't use without a spotter. That seems kind of contradictory. Now, initially, the scanning mechanic, of course, is going to be used for mining. It'll return a bunch of information based upon the mix of the rock and the asteroid or the location or wherever you're going. It will try to filter out non-mineable rocks, basically get it down to what is exactly in there that is mineable. So for 3.2, mining is going to be the only place using the scanning mechanic, and more will be introduced later.
Oh, please give me my Orion. I have such little faith in the game right now. I need something to get my faith back in the game. I really do.
Well, I mean, you can always borrow my little miner, so you're welcome to use that in the meantime.
Yeah, hopefully that works just as well. But I would like my own large, almost capital ship at this point.
Now, you had mentioned something about submarines a little while ago.
Yeah, when I was reading the things, it's kind of like, this sounds a lot like submarine combat, especially when they talk about, like an active ping and light you up like a quote Christmas tree, and it's like, that sounds like they're making submarine warfare. And I'll just read my notes word for word here and hope that I, wrote them nice enough, because I can't think on the fly like this, which is I wrote something down. So scanning is going to work on a passive and active system, like with the ping, which obviously it sounds like submarines. The thing about submarines is they are underwater, and sound waves travel incredibly far through water, which is part of the reason why that kind of technology, exists, and why it's so, prevalent in submarines. And the last thing you really want to do, now maybe the doctrines have changed, but I'm pretty sure they haven't, but the last thing you ever want to do is do an active ping when you're a submarine, especially if you're a very, very quiet submarine, because basically that's like holding up a big flag saying, here I am, because everyone will know where you are, but there's a chance that you don't know where they are, depending on how their distance is, because of the way it works is it sends out a pulse. And once that pulse hits something and rebounds off of it, you're getting a degraded signal as it travels back to you. So they'll know where you are, but if they're too far away, you won't know where they are. Now, obviously, this is space. Maybe it's not going to work exactly like that, but usually active is the last thing you want to do. I would love for them to have better passive sensors, but maybe more of specialized small ships like the Herald and Hornet Tracker, and there's another one I can't think of. But even on like larger ships where you have, let's not say the Connie, I'm trying to think of something above that, the Carrack, for example, which is I think becoming a pseudo capital now, where it's got more specialized sensors that would think of it like a focused beam, where you're not looking everywhere. You're looking like right over here, just kind of in front of you or to the left of you. Freelancer Dur would be another example, maybe not as powerful of sensors as like the Carrack or something, but you shouldn't have to want to go active all the time. And it seems, if they're basing this off submarine combat, that maybe their direction's not exactly where it should be. But again, we don't have the whole information, so I hope they do better than just submarine combat, because it's not water, and active pings are bad. You don't want to be doing those.
Going back to kind of what you're talking about with like the focus scan, having put some time into DCS now, the plane that you really like, the Su-27.
Yes.
When you have basically three types of scanning. You have the passive, which is used primarily for things that are very, very far away, or flying not necessarily, or maybe flying away from you. I have this mix, which is kind of can capture more data on things that might also kind of be, and I might be wrong on this a little bit in the details, so I'm still learning everything, but parallel to you or kind of somewhat towards you. And you have high, which is if a plane is running right towards you, it gets better tracking. And you can also set in the radar and the cone, because the radar is inside the cone of that plane, and you can actually change its angle. You can make it go up, down, left, right, and you can set to try to basically have it point in a certain direction. As far as focus scanning goes, another good one was, there was a Star Wars RPG, pen and paper, a long time ago, by West End Games before it went to the D20. They had passive, active, and focus mode. Now, you can probably look at the rules on that online. Now, that's a very simple system, but it was very, very good. The passive was basically a circle around you. Focus was a cone that had like twice the range of the passive, but it was a cone. And the focus was much tighter cone, and it went way further than even the active. That system alone, it just breaks it down to 3 tiers, would in some regards be very ideal for what Star Citizen would want to do. Now, to some degree, I think that the passive should be able to reach out the farthest, but maybe provide the least amount of information, just based on what I've been experiencing in DCS. As long as we can get enough information that we can make decisions about where we're going travel-wise with enough time for it to matter, that's really important. And speaking of things that can be attempted to be scanned, the Aegis Eclipse. So let's get into this real quick a little bit. This is one of the ships I do own, and I am looking forward to flying, but maybe not as much now because of a couple things. The cockpit on the Eclipse, they like to use the phrase utilitarian and enclosed. I have another term for that, clunky and obscured.
That's like all cockpits in Star Citizen now.
Yeah, it's weird because, the pitch and roll, you want to be able to look up, and there's this big hood over your head. Now, if you want to have, just cut some slots out of that and put a window up there, because it looks like you're in a bunker looking out a bunker's window. It is absolutely just, it's a cockpit designed for strafe and slide, gameplay. You try to pull up to follow somebody or see where you're going, you're going to collide on something. Can we stop blocking all the views? It doesn't make any sense. You can keep the left and right, that's fine, but good gravy, just cut some of that ceiling off, just a little. So
well, let's diverge in a slight tangent just for about 2 minutes here.
Yeah, go ahead.
In reality, you probably wouldn't want to have windows at all in a combat ship. You'd have multiple cameras, redundant cameras, large sensor packages, and you'd have a very, very armored control area. Obviously, in lore, they have the, transparent steel or whatever that they've said is, stronger than the steel they used to build the crafts. Then they go right back around to themselves and say, oh, well, pilot kills are an option. How are pilot kills an option when your own lore states that the glass is harder than the material used, which is why they don't use a lot of it? They have absolutely no idea what they're doing. And I've said that multiple times. I hate beating a dead horse, but they really have no clue.
Sometimes I get that feeling, like, we'll get into that here in just a bit, but, there's I feel there's a group of really intelligent, well-meaning, thoughtful, and passionate developers, and then there's a group of people who are just coming to work to get a paycheck. Now, here's something that kind of caught my eye as well. They have an atmospheric flight mode and a space flight mode, and landing mode as well, of course, when the wings fold up. The wings fold in for atmospheric flight, and they fold out for space. Excuse me one second. Why?
You might want to put a warning there for headphone users.
I'll adjust the audio later. I'll bring it down. I won't blow anyone's ears out. Wings are for lift. You don't need them out in space. They should go in space, and they should go out in atmosphere. Now, call me crazy. Call me cray-cray.
Oh, jeez. What's the song lyrics? The Call Me Maybe? Damn it. I can't remember them.
I don't know. But it seems to me that when you enter an atmosphere, the wings would be out. Now, if you go a certain speed, much like the F-14 Tomcat, then I could see the wings coming in. But there's never any reason for them to come out in space. You have a bigger signature. You're less stealthy. In space, the wings should be in at all times. This is just an example of completely backwards thinking. And what else can I say? I mean, wow, I'm mind blown.
Another thing, planes, when they go in an aircraft carrier, a lot of them have wings that fold up. Like, let's use the F-18 for example, right? The F-18 has, horizontal stabilizers in the back, and the wings kind of fold up to be about the same height as that. With a ship that has wings that can fold into itself, why would they have to go up at all?
Yeah, it seems like an extra step. I mean, you could just made them fold back even more if you needed more space. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it seems like an extra step, just being fancy for fancy's sake.
Yeah, the rule of cool, unfortunately.
Also, the landing gear is on these edges of the wings. So that's basically, if you lose a wing, you have landing problems again. Now, I was hoping CID was moving away from this.
Clearly not.
Clearly not, because now they have to make it so the wings don't break off. Otherwise, the landing gear are going to do what they do in the Hornet right now, which is pop out of thin air if the wing gets blown off, and it looks really goofy.
Another thing is usually, as far as like a weight thing, because the wider your stance is, or your landing gear or your wheels, the more stable you are. But usually wings aren't really that heavy because there's like very little in them. I mean, like a lot of planes have like fuel tanks in the wings, or at least in World War II they did. I'm not quite sure about modern jets. The wings probably don't weigh nearly as much as the main body. So if you're looking at it, you have the big, thick, meaty area. Why not just have them somewhere on where it starts tapering down? You still have plenty of support at that end. And if your wings are folding inside the wings, it narrows your profile. And put some freaking wheels on it.
Not triangle ones.
No.
Now, here's the part that almost made me spill coffee on my keyboard. CIG stated that the Eclipse is one of those ships that you're going to need protection to fly. You're going to need to have an escort. I might be wrong on this, but flying a stealth ship towards a target with a bunch of non-stealth ships is like a ninja attaching road flares to his arms and legs and trying to sneak up on you, and they're lit. So to me, it defeats the purpose of the escort.
But wait, are the road flares all the same red color, or are they multiple colors?
No, we're going for the full gambit here. It's all different colors.
Okay. Yeah, then, whoof. Yeah, I mean, you'd see that a mile
And he's
away.
waving his arms and legs like really fast, so just to be as stealthy as possible.
Disco ninja.
And his suit catches fire. A stealth ship is not made to go in with other ships as an escort. that is the opposite of what stealth is. We don't see our stealth bombers going, today one of our stealth bombers took out a target and was escorted by 4 F-18 Hornets. The target, they didn't notice any of them. That's not how this works.
Like the B-2 and the F-117 or whatever, they might fly with a wingman, but they wouldn't fly with a fighter escort.
Yeah. So as CIG says that the Eclipse is going to be a very useful ship when it comes to groups. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's a stealth ship. Unless it's a stealth wing of Eclipses, it's not going to be useful at all. The idea is to not be seen, to unload your payload and turn around and leave. That's it. You have guns only on the outside for defense, only like in emergency break glass, whatever kind of things. Stealth does not mean you need an escort. It means you come in stealthily.
So hopefully no one sees you. And the ship probably should have a turret on the rear section. Automated, obviously.
Just like they said the Sabre was the first actual stealth fighter, and I can't see anything. I hope those mechanics come in soon, because
we need more golf swings.
Well, that should detect anybody. On to this week's Calling All Devs. Those questions in there, I really didn't have any interest in any of them, but Lightning said, no, I will.
Yes. Oh, there's 2 of them in here that I wanted to touch on. One of them was, question, if CIG decides against player name tags, will there be unique looks to recognize people by the way they look? Like different clothes, armor, things like that. And the answer was, NPCs and players can wear the same clothes. Guys, I don't think that's an answer. I mean, unless the answer is no.
Yeah, that's the answer. That is the short form of the actual answer. It's like, if there's no name tags, you're not going to be able to tell. Unless, of course, you get some guy bunny hopping in the middle of the road, or you get some guy it's like spinning in circles, shooting his gun everywhere. That's probably a player. But in that case,
what we need emotes, and we need like dances. I want to be able to do the dirty dancing, not dirty dancing.
Dirty dancing. Oh god, you are not. I am not going to run towards you and you lift me in the air. That's not happening. Your fantasies are not coming true in this show.
I'll never let go, Jack.
That's something else.
I was just thinking of holding up. Anyway, another question they had was, currently when you enter the Freelancer using the side door, the airlock vents the entire ship. Will there be anything to address that? And the answer was, a lot of ships have this problem, and they're going to be working on it, making sure there's airlocks and pressurization, depressurization. But I look at this saying, like, derp, because clearly they didn't think about this when they did the ships this way. So it's another one of those style over function things, and I just thought it was a lovely way for them to be pointing out all the flaws in their game with every one of these lovely Calling All Devs segments.
My question is, like, you clearly have force fields that keep air in. You have them like for the landing pads and things like that. So why not for those ships that have, like, for example, the Freelancer they use had the side door. They said, oh, when you go in, you depressurize the ship. Well, why doesn't the interior door have a force field around it that keeps the air in, and you go through that, and then you're inside and the door closes? To me, it seems like a simple solution. They don't have to get. I mean, they have like, here's some tech we're using on the Idris. Why is it not available at other places? If you've created a ship that has like a big, like, oh, I'm going to open the back of the Freelancer, but I don't want to depressurize, so a force field is going to be on. You open it, you walk to the force field, now you're in space. You haven't depressurized the ship. I mean, the tech and the lore is already in your game. Just work with it. Work with it. It's there. Grab it.
And another thing is, this just points out that unless you're on a big capital ship, like a true capital ship, there's no reason not to be wearing armor. I mean, just straight up.
Yeah, so that goes back to the first question about how you identify players. The guy with like 40 guns strapped to his hip, running around armor that's pink and yellow. That's a good way to tech too. Yeah.
Yeah, because NPCs are probably wearing regular clothes or mechanics outfits.
And no player's ever going to take their armor off for fear of getting killed by somebody randomly.
no player is going to take off an EVA suit or armor because of the permadeath and the nature of space. I mean, why would you ever take that stuff off unless you were planet side and the law was like, you can't have guns or armor on here because we're a civilized place, which, by the way, guns, sure, that makes sense, fine. But why would you take armor off? That doesn't make any sense. I think that was one of their Q&A sessions.
Hey, I tell you what, with their hygiene thing, all I'll do is this. I'll never bathe. When I take the helmet off, they'll be like, no, actually put it back on. No, problem solved. I get past any rule. All right, and it's a kind of a last thoughts. I wanted to talk about something. First of all, before I get into this, I'd like to say that there's a lot of good, passionate people at CIG. I'm never going to say otherwise. You got like Tony Z, you got John Pritchett. You can see that there's passion in the lore team. Be nice if the developers actually used any of the lore. So you can see the passion, the desire to make this game work. They love the art, they love the tech. Sometimes they love the art too much, with the reflections, but that's something that, they're just too enthusiastic there. But they love what they do, and you can tell. And then you have the flight team, which we've actually heard them say how much they hated doing what they're doing on an actual stream. And boy, does it show. And it's like having these two different cultures. The guys who want everything to be as amazing as it can be, and the guys who just show up for the paycheck. When it comes to flight, why do they do everything backwards? Literally backwards. Wings for space, retracted wings for atmospheric flight. Wings are for lift, hello. Hard to read, hard to use MFDs. Because of pacing, you can't use them very well. They're badly placed in a lot of ships. The cockpits, they obscure vision. There's large enough dashboards in those cockpits that your crew could sleep on them if they're tired. All the glowy and transparent buttons and panels you can't read if there's any light source behind them.
Also the Omni tool, aka the whatever.
They have high acceleration with low top speeds when it should actually be the opposite. The flight is based on strafe and dodge when it was talked about multiple times as being pitch and roll. They have a brilliant physics engine programmed inside, and that's your core flight model, but it's overridden with a bunch of bullshit over-the-top values that negate the engine that's inside. They have a high time on target focused flight based on DPS and time to kill. And what it should be is flight that's based on positioning to obtain a good firing solution. They created a control mode, interactive mode, that only works on one control method on one controller, and it doesn't even balance with the other method in the same controller. Then they create ESP to balance this shooter-focused mechanic and increase all the rotations, and then try to balance off the damage of the weapons between tiers in a scale that's not even congruent with the other things in the game, or even the industry standard. All this was done to avoid universal controls for some reason. There's a bunch of ships out there that have forever gimbaled weapons that people with first-order devices like sticks or gamepads or whatever can never fully utilize. But they paid the same money. And then people say, oh, just throw a blade in there. But you know what? That's a blade you can't use for something else. So that's still not the same thing. The whole design, it not only screws over the flight, but it screws over everybody else forever who doesn't actually use a zero-order device. The missiles are short-range, ridiculously so. They're main-centric, while the ships are pretty much MAV-centric. The missiles can't track, and the ship they're being fired upon, that the missile's tracking, basically goes and strafes around the missile. The turrets were designed for pitch and roll flight, badly placed, but still designed around pitch and roll flight. And then they give first order controls left and right, and zero order up and down, which is a terrible control scheme by any regards. The turrets won't work in an environment that is not pitch and roll, especially if they're designed that way and the flight is all about strafing and dodging, and the ships
high
change
speeds.
Yeah, they change vectors too quickly for the turrets to track. So it's a mess. There's multiple flight modes. It should only pretty much be decoupled, and maybe, I guess, precision mode, like for landing, like it caps out your acceleration just to make it easier. I can understand a landing mode, but it should just be decoupled. Coupled was just thrown in basically so that people didn't have to feel any real sense of mass or sliding, which is kind of what space combat is. In fact, it's even also what atmospheric combat is. When you turn a plane, even in atmosphere, believe it or not, you're sliding. There's a certain amount of mass, and there's a certain amount of you have to have motion and counter motion. It takes time. The idea here is to have ships fly on rails and do it in every direction simultaneously, and faster in reverse.
What are they, French ships?
Main engines, these gigantic main engines, are nearly equal in power to the small, tiny little MAV nozzles that are on these things. It's just kind of as a bonus, radar and ground combat that eliminates, the idea of movement tactics, because you always know where the opponent is. Where does he keep the radar in this codpiece? Third-person views, even when in combat. Now, obviously, you can't see indicators and stuff, but you can still go third-person and look around the corner. Now, anyone who's played something like Arma or any sort of game at all that has that option knows that that's a mechanic that gets abused instantly. There's no threat to you. You just pop third person and you're able to see around that corner. If an ambush is set, or ambush them. You can look over a fence without actually sticking your head up. It's a real mess. I really feel at this point in time, third person, it's just odd. It's an odd thing to have, and something dubbing itself as a first person universe. BVR combat, they talk about beyond visual range, but they talk about in a way of having a seeing eye dog, and basically the ship scans and then sends the data back. When we have current day technology that see what's up ahead without having someone basically call it in. All these designs, they're completely bass-ackwards. If you were to draw a chart about how to make a flight game and then do the opposite, that is how perfectly they've gone backwards on so many decisions. So for the developers that clearly don't give a crap about the flight mechanics of the game and think making a flight game into an FPS is a acceptable or skillful or innovative idea, you're wrong, and you're ruining the game.
Well, I mean, you kind of have two camps here. I mean, you had the people that obviously are talented, but they're not flight guys. So, you know, they're
but
great
they're not even taking any input from like the thousands of other sources out there. They're not taking input from pilots and all these other people that are coming out and saying, no, look, this is how it works, and this is why it works that way. And it's like, we're going to do it our way, and you're wrong. I'll just stare at the camera blankly, and that somehow wins an argument.
That's another story altogether. Mostly that's one person.
Yeah, that's
that I can think of. But I mean, they have a lot of very talented people, but not all of them are in the right place.
Yeah, well, maybe that's the case. I don't know. But you know what? You have to go out of your way to mess up this bad. You have to. It's not hard to find examples. It's not hard to go to a YouTube and look at, let's look at radar systems on real-world planes for comparisons and watch a 10-minute video that does a brief explanation. Or how do missiles track? Why is that? Okay, that's interesting. Or, G-safe might make more sense that, I mean, maybe slowing down people when they're turning makes less sense than just reducing the rotation because they don't want the enemy to catch up.
No, we need more rotations.
Maybe we need to respect G-force. I mean, and why is that? And then look up G-forces and studies. I mean, YouTube is great right there alone, and that's just one tiny piece of the internet. It would take so little time to research this information to figure out maybe this is how it should be done. I mean, when this kind of thing happens, I really get the feeling like it's 5 o'clock. Boom! They hit the time card. They're gone. That's it. That's the last I think of it. They come the next morning, they clock in, and they start again. If you're passionate about something, you dig into it afterwards. I mean, you look at it, you think about it. It becomes, how do I make this better? And why doesn't this mesh if it isn't meshing? And then you look for examples. You just don't ignore them. I don't see passion on the flight model guys. I don't see it. Pritchett, yes, that's the core. He's done his job very well. But everyone else that like, you know, he built a wonderful engine, and everyone else is just throwing things at it, and it's just terrible.
Just about targets. Hit this target. You know, how fast can it accelerate? How fast can it turn? Yeah,
I can't wait till permadeath comes in. That's gonna make a lot of people just really happy about that. Constantly making a new character. So anyway, as I said, we love what they're doing along pretty much every other aspect, with the exception of Reflections. Their tech, their vision, their ideas, their graphics, their lore, the fact they're maybe making their own freaking languages. It's all brilliant. Get some flight, guys. CIG, just do it. Make it a stretch goal if you have to. Start a new Kickstarter, Flight Guys for CIG. I guarantee you get that sucker paid off in a day.
Ugh, no more stretch goals. They've already got all the money they need. It's time for them to lock their shit down and make a real game.
Speaking of real games, later this week I have a couple more videos about DCS, and wow, there's some really amazing stuff. I took the F-18 out for the first time on the test server and attempted to make a carrier landing.
I'm sure it went just fine.
It did. It was amazing. Nothing went wrong whatsoever. Promise. I actually don't. All right, everyone, that's about it for this week's BlastCast. Not a whole lot of news as we get closer and closer to the next test cycle for Evo Kadi, no doubt. Just a lot of ranting and why. But other than that,
confusion.
Yeah,
why do they do the things they do?
Exactly. All right, guys. Well, also, just as a quick note for those who actually made this video, I don't know if you've watched the DCS videos. Probably not, because they're not watched very heavily. As we're playing, we actually talk about Star Citizen mechanics and relate them to what we're doing. So if you want to see how these things apply, give them a check out. You know, just give them a watch, because I think it's going to explain some things pretty well. And I'm dealing with people who are hardcore simmers and real pilots, and they're going to do an amazing job of explaining these systems more than I'm even going to do here. They're my mentors, and they're amazing. All right, guys, that's about everything. We'll catch you on the next BlastCast.
Bye-bye.